So this morning I wanted to share a passage with you from the book of Hosea, chapter 14. Hosea is one of the minor prophets and is best known for the fact that he challenged and compared the unfaithfulness of Israel with his wife Gomer. But Hosea also had this steady message that God's love would be steadfast. And in chapter 14, as he's bringing his prophecy to a close, he writes in verses 5 through 7, and this is God speaking through Hosea, I will be like the dew to Israel. He will blossom like a lily. Like a cedar of Lebanon, Israel will send down his roots. His young shoots will grow. His splendor will be like an olive tree, his fragrance like a cedar of Lebanon. Men will dwell again in his shade, and he will flourish like the grain. He will blossom like a vine, and his frame will be like the wine from Lebanon. Hosea uses the promises of spring to remind us that God's love will overcome. It will overcome, in the case of the prophecy, sin and brokenness. But it will also overcome the disruption and subsequent transformation of a virus that creates a worldwide pandemic. Your church, my church, will forever be changed by what we have and what we continue to experience with the virus. And we will not look the same coming out of the virus as we did going into the virus. Hosea's imagery reminds us that despite that, the promises of spring, the awareness that things are beginning to change and that we're going to have some continuity again, those images, whether they be in the spring or whether they be concerning the virus, are images that remind us of God's faithfulness. But Hosea's imagery also contains some innate warnings within it. Spring comes from God, and it cannot be rushed. It comes from God, and if it is rushed, sometimes bad things happen. And sometimes the ones who rush are not always human beings. For example, this year's spring, because we had several very warm weeks in late March and early April, the peach trees in Palisade began to bud and to bloom. And then there came the 2 weeks of very, very, very cold. And those peach trees were damaged by that frost. In fact, I just heard on the news that 95% of the Palisade peach crop will be lost this year because of the early spring, or the trees thinking that there was going to be an early spring. Heard something similar about the tulips in Holland, that they had to plow under numerous fields because the tulip bulbs or the tulip blooms had been nipped by an early frost. Imagine somebody named Van remembering that little factoid, but I did. God will allow us to meet together again someday, but we cannot rush it. God will allow us to meet again in community, but in time, when the transformation is further along. If we rush into meeting together without first making sure that all the different things that are taken care of, we will experience damage and experience loss. And so we want to take our time and make sure that we do it right. And speaking of knowing the right time, we were thrilled to be able to bring you these video devotionals in a time when we felt like there was a need for some light. But as time has passed and as we have become a little video weary, we feel like the time to continue these bits of video encouragement has passed as well. Thank you for your time this morning and trusting that the signs of spring in your life will be a promise of God's faithfulness. Amen.
Great is thy faithfulness.